Norwegians are obsessed with American politics. Why? Norwegians are already tuning in to get all the latest news about the Democratic presidential candidate race. Why do Norwegians care so much about American politics? If you watch this video, you're gonna learn why. My name is Tor, and I have been involved in politics for the last 20 years, and I have a background in teaching social science and history. This is my channel where I give the American audience a Norwegian's take on US politics. Hello friends, I am thinking about making a series about American presidential candidates for the 2020 race, but I thought I'd warm up with this introduction. You might ask yourself, why do I as a Norwegian guy have so many opinions about American politics? American politics matter to Norwegians. Although the United States is not our most important trading partner, that would be Sweden, Germany and the rest of the European Union, American security policies affect us quite directly. Norway is a NATO member, and for many years we were the only NATO member country with a shared border with Russia. Norway could never withstand a Russian invasion on our own, but would rely on mainly American forces to secure our territory. We are in many ways a protected state, or even a protectorate, depending on how much autonomy you would consider we have over our foreign policy. What I'm saying is that when America says jump, we'll jump. After the 9/11 attack on World Trade Center in New York, we have been participating alongside the US in the war on terror. Norwegian Special Forces were amongst the first boots on the ground in Afghanistan, roaming the mountains searching for Al-Qaeda leaders. Thousands more of Norwegian troops have been deployed in Afghanistan since then, with several casualties. When Secretary Clinton had set her eye on overthrowing the Gaddafi regime in Libya, Prime Minister Jens Stoltenberg of Norway eagerly sent warplanes to bomb targets in a country we were not formally in war with, on Clinton's request. After losing the next election, he was rewarded with a position as Secretary General of NATO. Needless to say, we should never have been a part of that regime change war. The war on Libya can be considered illegal, as the operation changed from the initial mandate to protect civilians to an operation to overthrow Gaddafi. In retrospect, it is clear that it was a disaster for the country. Some of the rebel group the NATO operation aided turned out to be Islamist extremists, and still today, 8 years later, much of the country has not returned to rule of law. An estimated 2 million people has been displaced and become refugees. Open slave markets now exist in Libya. Exploitation of refugees and human trafficking are rampant. Boats of refugees and migrants are crossing the Mediterranean Ocean, from Libya to Italy and other parts of Europe in huge numbers. Thousands have died drowning in the sea trying to make it over. Those who make it are headed for countries like Germany, Sweden and Norway, which have the highest living standards in Europe, putting pressure on our immigration system. The same is true for Syria. The United States have been playing both sides of the conflict. On the one side, CIA has spent billions arming and training rebel groups in an effort to overthrow the Assad regime. These groups fought alongside the Al-Nusra Front, an affiliate of Al-Qaeda, the supposed main enemy in the long-lasting war on terror. The CIA's efforts were effectively enabling the emergence of the terror caliphate of ISIL in Syria and Iraq. The CIA-trained Syrian rebel forces was later destroyed by Russian bombings after Russia joined the conflict on the side of the Assad regime. At the same time, the United States were providing air support to Kurdish forces fighting ISIL in the northern parts of Syria and Iraq. And so far I have only scratched the surface of the complexity of this conflict, which also involves parties like Lebanon, Turkey, Saudi Arabia and Iran. It's a mess, and many players are at fault. But it certainly does not help that the United States have been fueling the war by supporting both sides of the conflict. There is even indications that the CIA was involved in the early stages of the conflict, providing arms to initiate the first stages of the civil war way back in 2011. The conflict in Syria has led to the largest displacement of refugees since the Second World War. 4.8 million refugees has fled the country. Refugees headed for Europe to countries like Germany, Sweden and Norway. According to the Norwegian Refugee Council, more than 62,000 refugees arrived in Norway the last few years. That's enough to make it to the top 10 list of Norway's largest cities. Next door in Sweden, 313,000 refugees has arrived in the same period, forcing the government to reconsider their liberal refugee policies. These are not small numbers, and we try to do our part. With a population of only 5 million in Norway, 62,000 refugees coming in a short period affects everyone. Every municipality pitched in and provided housing and programs to settle the refugees. The municipality where I live has 5,400 inhabitants, and even we have settled several Syrian families since 2015. We provide housing and furniture, schooling for the kids. The adults takes classes to learn Norwegian and are provided assistance to get jobs when their Norwegian are good enough. All the while, their living expenses are provided for until they can get a job on their own. We, the taxpayers, are paying for this, but we are glad to help, because we know far too well the atrocities that they have fled from. However, we are not naive about the causes for the arrival of the refugees. Most Norwegians would agree if I said that the United States were at least partly responsible for the large migration of refugees that are putting pressure on our welfare systems and liberal policies. American interventionist wars in Iraq, Libya and Syria are to blame. Some would say that we far too eagerly went along, at least in the case of the operations in Libya. But what choice did we really have? Norway is dependent on NATO and the United States to a degree where we don't really have a functioning army anymore. We have specialized in intelligence and naval capabilities, because that's what NATO asks for. We need to play the part of the loyal sidekick, however much the United States appears as the schoolyard bully. Being the sidekick of the biggest bully beats getting beaten by the next biggest one. And that should explain why we Norwegians are obsessed with American politics. The president that you elect kind of becomes our president too, but we have no say in the matter. If you want to take part in the discussion, please leave a comment below. Click like or dislike to tell me what you thought about the video, and subscribe to catch my next video with the Norwegian perspective on American politics. Ha det bra!